Yes, I'm here.
We
Hello.
have quorum. I think we have quorum, right?
It looks like we only have 4 commissioners present. Actually, we just hit 5, so we don't have quorum yet, but I did get a response from about 10 commissioners that they'll be joining if you want to wait a few minutes before we start.
But if we at least get the procedural part done now, right? I'm
Oh, yeah.
okay to do that.
I
All right,
believe so, yeah.
Let's get the procedural part done, and then if they get there, then we'll assess then. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is, well, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see everyone again. Commissioner Ornelas Wise, love the hat. I'm going to probably get one for myself. Good evening. My name is Rolando Bonilla. I am the chair of the San Jose Planning Commission. Welcome to the Planning Commission study session meeting. The meeting is being held via Zoom conference call due to the COVID-19 crisis. Members of the public may participate by following the instructions listed on the agenda. You may also view and listen to the meeting on live stream cable TV, Granicus, and YouTube. Following roll call during summary of hearing procedure, we will review how the public may provide comment during today's session. For now, Bonilla here. Casey?
Here.
Here. Caballero? Cantrell? Garcia? Lardenois?
Here.
I saw Justin King. There you go. Montañez? Oliverio? Ornelas Wise, I know she's here. I just saw her. Torrance?
Here.
And Young, I see Commissioner Young.
Here.
Perfect, thank you. So let the record reflect that as of right now, Caballero, Cantrell, Garcia, Montañez, and Torrance are absent. I think that's everyone. We'll still keep going with the summary, and then we'll circle back, Jennifer. Summary of hearing procedures. The procedure for this hearing is as follows. The city staff will call out names of the public who identified that they want to speak. You may identify yourself by the raise hand feature on Zoom. Click *9 on your phone, or you may call 408-535-3505 or email planning support staff at sanjoseca.gov and identify your name, phone number, and what item or items you'd like to speak on. As your name is called, city staff will unmute you to speak. After we confirm your audio is working, your allotted time will begin. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Speakers using a translator will have 4 minutes. Planning commissioners may ask questions of the speakers. Response to commissioner questions will not reduce the speaker's time allowance. Staff will unmute the speaker to respond to the commissioner. The public hearing will then be closed and the planning commission will take action on the item. The Planning Commission may request staff to respond to the public testimony, ask staff questions, and discuss the item. So that is now the procedural component to all this. Jennifer, do we have any other commissioners that have joined on since?
Yes, we have Commissioner Garcia and Commissioner Torrance that had just joined.
Okay, are we now at quorum?
Yes, we have quorum.
We have quorum. Okay, Vera, I do see your hand is raised, but I don't know if that's, go ahead.
Oh, Chair Bonilla, thank you. Just as a point of order, for study sessions where you are not making any decision, you do not need a quorum to move forward. So in the event that we didn't have the other 2 commissioners just join us, you could have moved forward. And that is consistent with the Brown Act, and it's in Article 3, Section 4 of your bylaws.
And it was about to be consistent with the Rolando Bonilla Act because that's what we're going to probably do anyway. So thank you for that, Vera.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we are now moving on to item 2, public comment. Staff, do we have any speakers for public comment? Items not on the Planning Commission study session agenda. Do we have any?
I do see one hand raised. Eric, is this a comment for an item not on this agenda today?
No, I'm sorry. This is regarding the general plan performance review.
Okay, so it is definitely for the item on the agenda. So we will take that when, Vera?
That would be after the staff presentation.
All right, perfect. All right, so with that, we will then move on. And before the vote? I mean, there's no vote. Okay, perfect. All right, with that, we'll now move on to item 3, 2021 General Plan Annual Performance Review. Mr. Rivera, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. Happy New Year, everyone. Robert Rivera with Citywide Planning Team. I'm joined today with Michael Briar, Deputy Director. And today I'll be presenting the Envision San Jose 2040 General Plan Overview for fiscal year 2020 to 2021. So just brief background, the Envision San Jose 24 General Plan sets forth a vision and a comprehensive roadmap to guide the city's continued growth through the year 2040. The general plan is the city's official policy document regarding its future vision and sets goals and major strategies to achieve them, including standards for city services, land use patterns, and quality of development. It took several years of community engagements and hundreds of participants to finalize the general plan. The current general plan that we use was adopted in 2011, titled Envision San Jose 2040, 2040 being the sunset year to achieve the goals outlined in the plan. And here's just some brief covers of former general plans that we've had from 75, 2000, 2020. San Jose was founded in 1777 with a population of 66 people and was largely an agricultural city for the next 170 years. And then in the 30s, Stanford engineers began to establish their own companies. And following World War II, and particularly beginning in the 50s, there's a combination of things that led to a boom in the population for San Jose. One being mortgage through the VA and FHA loans, which made it possible for some families to buy homes in the suburbs. Families that were excluded included minority residents who were subject to inequitable housing and lending practices. During the same time period, the federal government boosted the economy in the areas of defense and aerospace industry. And at that time, there was more land, obviously, and plenty for development. Also in the 50s, the famous city manager, Dutch Hammond, was hired as city manager and quickly worked to kind of fulfill his vision of making San Jose the LA of the North. He approved over 491 annexations between 1950 and 60s. And in the 60s, I think in that decade, there was about 900 annexations. So just expanding the large footprint of San Jose and really making the boundaries to what we see today. This is the general plan land use transportation diagram that we have in the Envision San Jose 2040. And largely this is what was shaped between the 1950s and 60s. As shown here, there's a variety of land uses, yellow being residential neighborhood, and that's predominantly the residential designation that we have in San Jose. Oh, pardon me. So I'll briefly go over the major strategies of the general plan. The general plan includes policies to annually evaluate progress on the plan strategies and actions, and takes place every fall of each year. We're sometimes fall, sometimes winter. The annual review is also when the Planning Commission and City Council can consider privately proposed amendments to the general plan. We've organized the performance evaluation around the 12 major strategies in the general plan based on data for the 2020-21 fiscal year. And the fiscal year starts in July 1st and goes to the next year, July 30th or June 30th. So in this presentation, I'll present a summary of the implementation highlights for each of those strategies. The first one being major strategy 1, community-based planning. The community-based planning major strategy is a commitment to effectively engage all segments of the community in a meaningful planning process. The general plan goes beyond state requirements for outreach by implementing the city's public outreach policy 6-30. The table here on the slide shows the number of community meetings held by the planning division by fiscal year since the adoption of the general plan. Through fiscal year 2020-21, on average, the planning division has held over 50 community meetings per year, with an average of over 1,700 attendees each year. And due to the pandemic and shelter-in-place restrictions, community meetings were halted back in March 2020. Staff began reformatting community meetings in a virtual format, and in June 2020, we implemented the virtual community meetings. So as a result, you can notice the fiscal year for 2019-2020 shows a significant decrease in community meetings, while fiscal year 2020-21 shows a significant increase as those virtual meetings became the predominant format for holding those community meetings. Major strategy number 2, form-based plan. The form-based plan major strategy uses land use designations and general plan goals and policies to address the form and character and densities for future development in the city. The strategy aims to maintain and create compatible and cohesive neighborhoods while allowing for flexibility within the land use designations. And recent examples of where this strategy is implemented is citywide design standards and guidelines adopted on February 23rd, 2021. And these are just objective standards that developers can look to that promotes cohesive development in those neighborhoods. Major strategy number 3 is focused growth. The focused growth major strategy focuses new residential and commercial growth capacity in specifically identified growth areas. The approach is meant to reduce environmental impacts and improve the city's fiscal health and preserve established neighborhoods. And here's a map of all of the focused growth areas in the city of San Jose. Many of them are urban villages, but some of them are employment growth areas as well, including downtown and DSAP. As it relates to growth, I want to give an update on changes in the city's population and development activity. Since the adoption of the general plan in 2011, the city has grown 6%, or approximately 60,000 new residents. However, you can see a sharp decline from 2020 to 2021. The city's population has declined by 1.8% from the peak levels, being a little over 1,049,000, losing approximately 19,000 residents in the past year. And then total current population is 1.029 million residents. The graph also shows the city's projected population to 2040, and then the actual trajectory of the population growth. And there's a lot of speculation why the resident numbers have dropped, and at this point, it's still to be determined if the cause was completely COVID or if there are other underlying causes. Just for reference to the population in 2011 was when the general plan was adopted was roughly 970,000. This graph shows square footage of new commercial industrial building permits since adoption of the general plan in fiscal year 2011. As the graph shows, we have had strong years coming out of the recession. Commercial activity was high this past fiscal year, or in 2019, 2020. And then in fiscal year 2020-21, industrial office building permits have been the highest since the adoption of the general plan. And this is largely due to more building permits being permitted for industrial office, a higher interest in downtown and DSAP areas. This graph shows issuance of building permits for single family and multifamily residential units over the same time period. Single family building permits also include ADUs and second units. Since adoption of the general plan, we've issued approximately 27,700 building permits for housing. This equates to an average production of approximately 2,700 dwelling units per year. And consistent with the general plan policies for focused growth and preserving our open spaces and existing neighborhoods, 9% of housing production since 2011 has been for single family homes. The rest have been for multifamily. And again, a large part of that single family building permits issued is for ADUs. The next graph shows valuations of commercial and industrial alterations and overall level investment in renovations to existing buildings. Commercial alterations have slightly increased from the previous fiscal year, indicates higher number of renovations and remodels of commercial space, while industrial office alterations have dropped the lowest since 2011, likely due to the pandemic and lack of renewed leases for fiscal year 2021. I anticipate that the number may rise in the next fiscal year as more people return to work and offices attempt to right size with different hybrid work models being adopted. Since the adoption of the general plan, the city's been pretty successful in implementing the focused growth major strategy. Over the last fiscal year, 80% of new residential development and 41% of new commercial development and 98% of new industrial square footage has been within focused growth areas. And these are three different maps showing the concentration of new commercial, new industrial office, and residential growth over the last fiscal year. You can see that commercial is more dispersed due to the more scattered location of commercial shopping centers, while industrial and office growth is more focused in downtown, BSAP area, and North San Jose. Residential development is near transit within focused growth areas, and also downtown as well. Housing, while not a major strategy, also plays an integral role in the general plan through the housing element and as a component for multiple major strategies. The graph shows 120,000 planned units from the baseline of the general plan through 2040. To meet the goals of the general plan, it will require an uptick in housing production. As I mentioned earlier, we're averaging around 2,700 units per year since the adoption of the general plan. But to meet the ambitious goals of the general plan, we would need to average approximately 3,700 units a year to reach the 120,000 homes planned, which would be a high pace based on past trends. And related to housing production, the state and subsequently the Association of Bay Area Governments assigned the region's housing allocation to each jurisdiction, known as the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, or RHNA, which is based upon population projections and regional forecasts. The current RHNA cycle is from 2014 to 2023, and San Jose has currently been assigned to produce 35,000 of approximately 188,000 units assigned to the Bay Area region. That equates to about 18.5% of the region's housing allocation. The RENA allocation is broken down by affordability, and about 60% of San Jose's units are expected to be in the affordable category, according to RENA. So 5 years into the current RENA cycle, we have issued building permits for 18,430 units, with 23% being affordable. So roughly 4,327 units are affordable. For market rate, we have issued building permits for 14,103 units and anticipate reaching the market rate goal set by RENA, which is 14,231 units. Also in 2018, zoning regulations to encourage development of secondary dwelling units were further relaxed. This has been shown in the former slide as an uptick in those single family residential ADUs. And just to note, the city is undergoing the RENA process right now to update our allocation needs for San Jose. This is meter strategy number 4, Innovation Regional Employment Center. The Regional Employment Center major strategy aims to transform San Jose from a bedroom community into a regional employment center. The general plan plans for 382,000 new jobs and sets a goal to reverse the imbalance of jobs to housing. This strategy is similar to the focused growth strategy, but supports job growth within our existing job centers and transit hubs. One of the primary goals of the Regional Employment Center strategy is to achieve a jobs to employed resident ratio of 1.1 jobs for every employed resident. Based on the most current complete data set, the city's jobs to employed resident ratio has decreased since 2017 back to 2011 levels at 0.80, with exception of a higher jobs to employment ratio in 2017. And this is likely due to the loss of employed residents and jobs due to the pandemic. However, as evident by the numbers, San Jose's been adding more residents than jobs since the adoption of the general plan, which has also contributed to the jobs to employed resident ratio moving downward over time. So as I mentioned earlier, 382,000 new jobs are planned for over the time frame of the general plan. The city would need to average approximately 13,000 new jobs per year to achieve the total planned jobs in the general plan. This graph shows the city's projected job growth out to 2040, and then the actual trajectory of our job growth. The city's job growth is slowing a bit since the adoption of the general plan 2011. And has decreased compared to fiscal year 2019. Pardon me. Major strategy number 4, Innovation Regional Employment Center. While the jobs to employed resident ratio is declining, on May 25th, 2021, the City Council unanimously approved the Downtown West mixed-use plan. The approval followed 3 years plus of community engagement led by both the city and Google, and built upon a decade of planning for the Diridon Station area. Downtown West makes up approximately 80 acres of the 250-acre Diridon Station area plan. The approved project proposed by Google allows the construction of up to 7.3 million square feet of gross square feet of office space, 4,000 units of new housing, up to 500,000 gross square footage of active uses, including retail, cultural arts, etc. 100,000 gross square footage of event space and hotel use of up to 300 rooms. Then 15 acres of parks and open space and infrastructure and utilities. Moving on to major strategy number 5, urban villages. The urban village major strategy promotes the development of urban villages that are active, walkable, and transit-oriented mixed-use settings for new housing and job growth. In total, the general plan identifies 64 urban village areas that plan for approximately 65,000 housing units and 116,000 jobs. Urban village plans are expected to be developed for each area over the time frame of the general plan. Residential development has also been planned in phases, but through the 4-year review, we've updated that and removed the plan horizons. Before mixed-use residential development can move forward in urban villages, an urban village plan must be adopted, which the form-based planning major strategy, land uses and designations and general plan policies uses the form-based plan major strategy to address the form and character and densities for future development in the city. This strategy aims to maintain and create compatible and cohesive neighborhoods while allowing for flexibility within the land use designation. Thus far, there have been 12 urban village plans that have been adopted by council, and North First Street Urban Village is currently in the planning process. There are 7 additional plans that are anticipated to be initiated, including Ray Street, Southwest Expressway, Eastside Elm Rock, Little Portugal to be updated, and Figure 10 shows the timeline of anticipated dates to be initiated. So all urban village plans involve extensive community engagement and input when developing the plans. There's also a general plan policy that allows what's known as a signature project, which lets mixed-use residential projects move forward ahead of a planning horizon or adopted urban village plan if it meets certain criteria and clearly advances the implementation of the urban village major strategy. Currently, 6 signature projects have been approved by council, and 2 are in the pipeline, and 3 signature projects are under construction. Major strategy number 6, streetscapes for people, sets policies that support the physical health of the community by designing streets for all users, promotes increased walking, bicycling, and public transit use, as well as encouraging access to healthful foods. Goals and policies of the general plan encourage the development of complete streets and complete communities where residents can walk or bike and have access to parks and trails. For the streetscapes for people strategy, currently there are 3 major initiatives led by the Department of Transportation: Better Bikeway San Jose, Better Bike Plan 2025, and the Access and Mobility Plan. Better Bikeway San Jose was an initiative to increase bicycling in central San Jose. As of July 2020, the initiative has installed 10.7 miles of bikeways in downtown, 4.2 miles of protected bikeways, 1.5 miles of bike lanes, and 5 miles of shared lanes on calm streets. And that's been completed. DOT recently updated the city's bike plan to Better Bike Plan 2025, which was recently approved by City Council on October 6th. The plan aims to increase bike trips by at least 15% by 2040. And currently, DOT is working on the access and mobility plan that will lay out a set of strategies to implement the transportation goals of the Envision San Jose 2040 General Plan and Climate Smart San Jose Plan. The plan will develop projects and policies that will progress toward goals to increase walking and biking and transit use while decreasing auto dependency, increasing safety, and making street designs around people, not vehicles. And the access and mobility plan is currently underway. Major strategy number 7, measurable sustainability and environmental stewardship, recognizes the general plan as a tool to minimize impacts on resource consumption, contribute to and lower contributions to global warming, and preservation of natural resources related to growth and development. This includes building a world-class trail network and continuing to build parks for the city's residents. In February 2018, the city approved the Climate Smart San Jose Plan, led by the Environmental Service Department. The climate plan uses the general plan as a foundation and goes further by creating a pathway for San Jose to reach the state's targets of 80% reduction below 1990 levels of greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, as well as achievement of the Paris Climate Agreement, which sets a goal by 2050 to keep the rise in global temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius. The plan sets out 9 strategies and includes a city action plan and playbook that have strategies that can be implemented by various audiences, including residents and developers. Environmental service staff will provide semi-annual updates to the City Council on progress implementing the Climate Smart Plan. And on November 8th, 2021, the San Jose City Council unanimously voted to adopt a goal of reaching net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. The city has announced that by 2030, it intends to emit the same amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere as it offsets by alternative means, such as producing more electricity from solar panels and encouraging more residents to drive electric vehicles over gas-powered vehicles. So they're offsetting the carbon emissions by 2030. Also, staff is currently comprehensively updating the parking requirements to enable no or low parking requirements in downtown and transit areas. The fiscally strong city major strategy establishes land use goals and policies that promote a balance of revenue and costs to allow the city to improve delivery of municipal services. A key component of this strategy is to preserve employment land, since commercial development has the most beneficial impacts on the city's fiscal health and the ability to provide services. The COVID-19 pandemic has a great and adverse impact on the fiscal outlook of the city. The city's general fund is the primary operating fund used to account for all revenues and expenditures of the city, which are not related to special or capital funds that were created for a specific purpose. For the current fiscal year, the budget office projected shortfalls of 48.1 million and a total shortfall of 38.2 million over the next 5 years. But since March, the 2020-2021 adopted budget was modified several times throughout the year as the city responded to new information regarding economic performance and the persistence of the COVID-19 cases. In the general fund, actions were taken over the course of the year to decrease revenue estimates from business taxes, parking operations and citations, hotel activity, and park and recreation related fees. Significant revenue estimate increased, including sales tax, property tax, and real property transfer tax from Measure E. As a result of those adjustments, as well as careful forecasting and monitoring and management throughout all the city funds. Overall, 2020-2021 revenues and expenditures ended the year very close to budget expectations. However, in the fourth quarter of 2020-2021, the city saw an extremely strong surge of revenue growth in the general fund, which contributed to a higher than anticipated level of year-end fund balance. The 2020-2021 general fund ending fund balance of $369.2 million exceeded the estimate of $321.2 million used in the development of the budget. This variance represents a 2.7% increase surplus of the 2020-2020 modified budget. Major strategy number 9, destination downtown, supports continued growth of downtown as the city's cultural center and as an important employment and residential neighborhood. Consistent with this, the general plan plans for significant job and residential growth in downtown. And since the adoption of the general plan, development permits for over 8,470 residential units and approximately 11.8 million square feet of commercial space has been approved in downtown. Also, the commercial vacancy rates have significantly declined since adoption of the general plan. In 2011. 2011, vacancy rates were approximately 23.6%, and currently the vacancy rate is 12.7% for commercial office in downtown. Downtown is where many events and outdoor events are held, with 750,000 attendees. Was in fiscal year 18-19, but due to the shelter-in-place orders for COVID-19 pandemic, many social events were canceled, and San Jose saw a loss of 50% in revenue across the hospitality and service sectors within downtown. With a wide distribution of the vaccine, however, cultural and entertainment activities began to return in 2021. The San Jose Jazz Festival, for example, resumed in August 2021, albeit a smaller scale, but still resulting in hotel rooms filling up in downtown during the festival weekend. The next major strategy, life amidst abundant natural resources, promotes the city's natural environment and reinforces the urban growth boundary. The strategy also promotes building a world-class trail network and continuing to build parks for the city's residents. Currently, the city has over 200 parks and has completed over 60 miles of off-street trails. The Parks Department is also working on updating the green print, which is the city parks strategic plan. The update is called Activate SJ and is expected to be completed later this year. This is major strategy number 11, designed for a healthful community, which supports the physical health of the community by promoting walking, bicycling, and encouraging access to healthful foods. Goals and policies of the general plan encourage the development of complete communities where residents can walk and bike and have access to parks and trails. The general plan emphasizes investment in active transportation and sets an ambitious goal to reduce the drive alone commute mode split to less than 40% by 2040. We're currently actually around 75.8% driving alone. Another program that will support the general plan's commute mode split is the VTA's Next Network project, which was launched in early 2020. It seeks to better connect VTA transit with the Milpitas and Berryessa BART station and increase ridership overall. Unfortunately, the VTA Next Network project was halted because of COVID-19, and VTA was focusing on increasing operations to better connect residents. But hopefully they'll they'll continue to observe and continue that initiative. Staff would also like to note the work from home statistic on this table, which hasn't been updated for, according to the ACS, the American Community Survey, and is likely higher than 4.2%. Lastly, in major strategy number 12, plan horizons and periodic reviews. This major strategy provides a tool for phasing residential development in urban villages. The plan horizons were removed as part of the general plan 4-year review. But this is the 4-year review also establishes the opportunity to evaluate and change, make changes to the general plan in planning context and to achieve the city's key goals. And the general plan 4-year review was completed on December 14th, 2021. I know we just saw this, but just a reminder of all of the work items in this 4-year review scope of work, which included opportunity housing, residential uses in underutilized business corridors, the future of Coyote Valley, Evergreen East Hill development policy, and various urban village implementation and affordable housing goals. Lastly, the 2021 general plan amendments. Here's a list of the privately initiated general plan amendments for 2021, and I'll be presenting these during the rest of Planning Commission. That concludes staff's presentation.
First of all, Robert, that was impressive, man. Not just the depth of the work, but your ability to talk straight through it. So thank you for that. Right
yeah, there's a lot.
I could see that. With that, before we get into commissioner questions, I understand we do have public comment, and that public comment also wants to be able to present a chart. Jen, is this a good time to do that?
Yes.
All right. So how many public comment do we have?
We have about 2 hands raised at this time.
All right. So let's go ahead and start public comment. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Casey.
Sorry, Chair. 2 of the commissioners, I think, are in the attendee section.
Oh, are they? Got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I wasn't able to promote Commissioner Caballero. Commissioner Caballero, did you receive the invite to be promoted to panelist?
Sorry, just got it. I had.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then I'll unmute.
All right.
First.
Perfect.
Eric.
Thank you.
Okay. Eric, 2 minutes to speak.
Yeah. Good evening, Chair Bonilla, members of the commission. My name is Eric Schnauer. I'm a local land use consultant, San Jose, 5th generation San Josean, and I had the honor of serving on the original Envision 2040 task force, the first 4-year review update, and the second 4-year review update. So I'm very familiar with the general plan, and the staff did a fantastic job pulling together the overall analysis of the general plan. I read all 60 pages of the report, and Robert did a great job on the presentation tonight. But I want to draw focus on a significant challenge that we faced as a city and a major failure of the general plan, and that is in the production of housing. And so I've put the city's data in a slightly different format because I find it easier to read and understand. So on the right side of this chart are the total housing units that have received building permits in the 10 years of the Envision 2040 general plan. So you see the numbers in red. Those are the annual building permits issued for multifamily and single family housing. And I just want to remind the commission that, as Robert said, the RHNA goal, the state requirement is that the city produce roughly 3,500 units per year for this current RENA cycle. And the next RENA cycle, that number is going to go up significantly higher than 3,500 units a year. When Envision 2040 was adopted, the planned capacity over the lifetime of the general plan was 4,100 units per year. That was the planned capacity. And then lastly, in 2017, the mayor and city council adopted a city goal of producing 5,000 units a year. So those are the established goals: 3,500 by the state, 4,100 by capacity of the general plan, and 5,000 units a year by city council policy. Look at the column on the right. This is what the city's producing. And a large portion of the reason is the implementation policies in the general plan. Now, there are other factors that make housing production difficult in the Bay Area, but the implementation policies are a clear hindrance and hurdle to housing production, and we all suffer as our neighborhoods get taken over by homeless
Your
and
time is
cannot afford to live here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
next. We have Jill Borders.
Hi, well, I'll pick up where Eric left off, which is that the general plan has actually prevented housing from being built. He's trying to tell you that with the horizons that were in there, with all of these restrictions on developers and builders, we are not doing what we need to do to build enough housing. And I live in a mobile home park that in the 2020 general plan was left untouched and was mobile home only, and it was very cared for, only to come to find out that the Envision 2040 plan, it was highlighted and made to be neighborhood community commercial in its land use designation, which of course started all this trouble that we had with redevelopment of mobile home parks and what we're going to do, et cetera, et cetera. So I call the Envision 2040 plan a displacement plan. I call it Envision Displacement 2040. Now, Eric and I are on opposite sides of the sort of fence, but we are completely in line with this one idea, which is that San Jose, my feeling is that San Jose has actually done more to cause the homelessness crisis with this general plan than almost anything else. So we can blame landlords, or we can blame progress, and how poverty and progress are quite aligned in large cities like ours that are successful financially. But the bottom line is this general plan was intended by Mayor Reed and then by Mayor Liccardo, who supported it, to have a jobs to housing ratio of 3-to-1. And they did not want housing to be built, period. And it has not been. We need to listen to Eric Schnauer and find out what it is that he is suggesting we do, because we have to get things built fast. And there's really no better person to talk to than Eric Schnauer. I personally think that even though he may be at the end of my demise where I live, ultimately, he's going to help us get housing built. And I think he's the only one that I can say that when I see him, his expertise in this area is without question. I hope tonight that you will find it in your hearts to sort of ask him, what can we do to build and build fast? Thank you.
Chair, this.
All right, that concludes public comment. All right, with that, colleagues, any questions from the floor here? I see Commissioner Young, Commissioner Casey. We'll start with Commissioner Young.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to commend Mr. Rivera, Mr. Brio, and the planning staff on the staff report. It was amazing. It was excellent. I worked in local government for a long time. I know how hard it is and how much work it is to produce those reports. It was concise, well-written, great graphics, and I learned a lot. I read every word of it. I know that sometimes in local government, we produce reports and wonder if anyone's ever going to read them. Well, I did, and I think a lot of other people did too, so thank you for that. I wonder, staff, if you might be able to bring up page 18 of the staff report, which has to do with jobs per employed resident.
Yes, 1 second. Page 18.
Yes, please.
Share my screen.
See, this is the stuff that impresses me. Playing with the screen in Zoom, I'd freak out.
Page 18.
Please.
Pardon me. I think this is only the summary sheet.
That's
This
it.
is
Thank you.
the figure.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Appreciate that. So this page was probably the most telling page in the report, and for myself, I'll tell you why. We have folks that are saying that we're not producing enough housing. I understand that. But if you look at our ratio of employed residents, which is 0.8 currently, it's actually gone down. What that means is that we are actually producing more housing in comparison to our employed residents than any other city. And I'd like to point out the vast disparity. For example, Cupertino 2.15, Mountain View 1.89, Palo Alto 3.27, Santa Clara 1.92. Now, the reason this is important is because the way the city is funded is from tax revenue, and tax revenue in California, unfortunately, comes from employment, not so much from residential property or residents. So what happens is when we're in a city with a 0.8, we have a structural deficit problem in our budget. We have a need for city services and not enough jobs revenue and tax revenue from jobs to support those. So I point this out because this report has really kind of created a paradigm shift for me as how I think about housing. I'm new on the commission, and I came on the commission with the thought that we need more housing, kind of period. I'm starting, especially with their support, to question that. I think we need more affordable housing, definitely, no question. But I'm not sure that we're not already doing our share of market rate housing, particularly considering our cities to our north. I feel like maybe the cities to our north need to step up and do their share. So I'll stop there, but I do have a question for Mr. Rivera and Mr. Brio, which is, how do you explain that we are short on the RENA goals of our share of housing when we appear to be also short on our employed residents? That seems like a contradiction to me. And I believe the RENA goals are set by the Association of Bay Area Governments, which is not an elected body. So I was wondering if you might just be able to explain that contradiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Young, for your comments, and I really appreciate reading the entire report and taking the time to get into the details. Just to reiterate your question, I guess your question is, why does the city seem to need to produce more housing if we're short on the RENA goals. I just wanted to bring up this figure in the staff report. And yes, the city is producing less than the total housing units for the RENA allocation, but we're likely going to meet 100% of the market rate units and falling short of the affordable units. And like you were saying, more affordable housing is really what's needed, and that's the area where percentage-wise the city is falling short. We'll meet the RENA allocation for market rate units, but that 60% affordable goal is likely going to not be met. And Michael is working on updating our RENA allocation and can speak more to that as well.
I think a lot of it, Commissioner Young, has a lot to do with the jobs. We're not growing jobs as quickly as we would need to get to that balance of 1 and then exceed that to get to a goal of 1.1. So it's largely the jobs, as Robert showed, the jobs actually have crept downward, particularly during COVID. So that's a big part of it. I think also this is about unit production. The population, there has been a bit of overcrowding likely going on. I don't have the data on that, but that's my hunch. Another factor that's happening is you're having more and more people in certain situations living in units. Don't have the data behind that, but that's sort of my sense of what's going on. But I think it's more really on the job side. We're not doing as well on jobs as we are on the housing side.
Thank you for that. And I think I'll finish and let other commissioners ask questions, but I think that Mr. Brio, what you brought up is that it's critically important to preserve the employment lands we have. And that is one of the major strategies. I'm not finding where it is, but I know I saw it in there, that we need to preserve employment lands. It's very important, and think very carefully about adding market rate housing on lands that could be used for employment. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. I always appreciate your thoughtful questions. Commissioner Casey.
They actually answered my question. Commissioner Young stole my thunder. So.
That's that's called efficiency. Any other questions, Commissioner Casey? That was it?
Just a general comment. I'm wondering, if these aren't conflicting goals, and how do we reconcile them, right? We want the jobs, obviously, we want the housing, and I understand the need for the jobs and in terms of how that fiscally impacts the city. But is there something we can do to kind of prevent these conflicting goals from combating one another?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So a couple of things. So the general plan, you have to remember that when the general plan was being developed and approved by council, we were in the Great Recession. We were in a jobs crisis, which had significant fiscal impacts upon the city and on people's own personal lives. But we've kind of shifted our approach over the last, 10 years? It's more a focus on being much more of a balanced city. So it's really about growing jobs and housing. And while those can seem to be in conflict, we really need to do both. And I think the areas sort of where they really come in conflict, and I think where we can try not to really further put housing and jobs at odds, is to continue to maintain and uphold those policies we have in the general plan about not converting employment land to housing and really focusing the housing growth that we have within our existing growth areas. We have a lot of growth areas. We have a lot of urban villages, roughly around 60 urban villages. We don't actually have enough housing capacity right now to spread them out to all of the urban villages. So we have actually more growth areas than we need to build 120,000 housing units. But that's sort of I think the critical thing is kind of really continuing, at least from staff's perspective, the general plan's perspective, keeping that focus on growing, making the housing happen in the growth areas, and not converting employment land, particularly industrial land, but also commercial land, to housing. One of the things that has come up a lot, how the general plan is a barrier to housing, is the idea of horizons and metering out housing growth. That's something the Planning Commission recommended, and the City Council got rid of the idea of doing horizons or keeping the horizons in the general plan. So that's now not in the general plan. And at least for urban villages now, it's really about us doing those urban village plans to sort of come up with a framework for how you could at least plan for and grow both housing and jobs in those urban villages. I mean, the council could say, let's not do urban village plans. Let's just allow housing to go forward in that village, in those villages. That is an approach the council could decide, and that could be an approach we go forward with. I think two things with that. One is we really need to figure out how we grow the jobs as well, preserve land for jobs while doing the housing, and that comes out of the village process. And I think more importantly, it's really a sort of a balancing act between community engagement, involvement, and democracy versus just streamlining the process for development. So when we do the village plans, it's an opportunity for stakeholders, community stakeholders, property owners, developers, businesses, and others to get together and come up with sort of an approach of how you would grow that urban village to sort of meet many goals and achieve that balance. So that's sort of the balancing act if you go down the spectrum of streamlining versus community engagement. And so we think we have a good approach there. Sorry, I'm going beyond your question and kind of responding to some things that Eric brought up. I apologize.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, Chair, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I appreciate staff's effort, especially compiling and presenting this information the way you guys did. You should be commended, as other commissioners have commented. I would be interested if the chair would be open to it, and the rest of the commissioners to hearing what Mr. Schnauer's, a few of his, I guess, suggestions would be in terms of assessing the situation as well. But I'll wait and see what everyone else thinks. You
want me to call him back right now?
No, I mean, I'm sure the commissioners have questions, but at some point, it'd be nice to hear what he has to say from the private sector's perspective.
Got it. Well, what I was going to say was it is now 6:02 p.m. We have a meeting at 6:30. Is it pressing for you, Commissioner Casey? If it is, I will go. Otherwise, I think we should.
No. I think Michael did a great job in terms of summing up a lot of the information. But yeah, just if we had extra time, it would have been nice. But no, sorry.
No worries. So what I'll do is I'll end the meeting with Ornelas Wise. I'll give her the floor, and then after that, we can adjourn. Commissioner Ornelas Wise.
Thank you. Hi. Really good job, Robert. And you look very professional. So thank you. Just one of the things I was looking at, a major strategy number 6, where you talk about access and mobility. And I know that you all mentioned a lot about bikes. Obviously we're now in 2022, and I've seen so many really cool recreational gadgets for people to use as a mode of transportation. I don't know if you have in any of that language. It would be nice to see some of those motorized or electric sort of skateboards or vehicles be able to use some of the trails or, some of those paths, so that you could get people out of cars and actually using those safely. I don't know how, but I'm sure that somehow, did you include that at all in the text?
No, we didn't include other micro mobility modes. I think the focus was on, reducing driving alone, and really getting, be it bike, walking, scooters, or other, I've seen those one-wheel devices, but any other devices that can promote other modes of transit. I think it's not exclusive to biking or those other mobilities.
Yeah, and DOT's transportation planning work has a big part of their work is focused on those micro mobility elements. They really recognize that's a real growth area to improve people's access and getting around without a car. So they are working a lot on that. I'm not too sure of the status of those devices on trails. I know when I had a conversation about this in the past with the trail coordinator that electric bikes weren't really supposed to be on the trails, but nobody really pays attention to that. I'm not sure what the status of that is, but that's a good question.
Another thing on major strategy number 11, one of the things that is really taking back public streets and converting them into public use. Obviously, during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of restaurants and whatnot do that, like San Pedro Square, or even convert some of these streets that are maybe not used to create more locations for affordable housing. And, I don't know if you included any of that at all, or was that even discussed in the document as part of maybe something that could be implemented?
That wasn't discussed for affordable housing. It is part of, creating a lively atmosphere and kind of a streetscape where people can enjoy entertainment, kind of have a access to events outdoors, and kind of recognize the importance of those events, especially during the pandemic. But I don't think there was anything focused for affordable housing, though.
I think those were all my comments. Everything else was really well done. Thank you.
Commissioner Nellis-Weiss, thank you. All right, colleagues, with that, it is now 6:06 p.m. I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I will see you all in 24 minutes. Take care, everyone.